Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are here with a very special bonus episode here on Movies and Us because some exciting things have happened in the world of movies. Sarah, what are we talking about today?
Now, Jen, I don't know if you know this, but a few days ago, a little something dropped called the Oscar nominees. Have you heard of them? Are you aware of this?
Oscar's the name of, men usually, but also the name of the crowning jewel of the award season here in the world of movies. Wow, also known as the Academy Awards. Exciting stuff. This is our game time Super Bowl of the movie world. Here we are. We're gonna get to talk about it today.
Yeah. We are excited to talk about all of these nominees, which honestly, this list has caused quite a stir. So I'm very excited that we get to talk about it all.
Yeah. And I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts about internet reactions to some of these and whether you agree or if you have some differing opinions about the way that the world seems to be reacting to some of these snubs and surprises. So we're going to share today, just kind of spitballing our initial reactions of some of the biggest news related to the Oscar nominations. All right, where shall we begin? I think there's one that everyone is upset about. Shall we start with that one?
Yes, I think there is no better place to start
than where people are having a lot of feelings.
Yeah, let's talk about our feelings, shall we?
Yeah. So the Barbenheimer phenomenon was a big thing of the year in movies in 2023. And one half of the Barbenheimer phenomenon is doing very well here in the Oscars world. We've got Oppenheimer with 13 nominations, but not so great for the other half of the Barbenheimer phenomenon. So there's a lot of conversation right now around the snubs for Barbie, namely for Best Director, Greta Gerwig, and Margot Robbie for Best Actress. Tell me your thoughts and reactions to these seemingly missing nominations. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for Margot Robbie, that's easier for me. I think that she is deserving of a nomination. I haven't yet seen Nyad, but I would probably want to kick that one out and put Margot Robbie in there instead. But again, I haven't seen Nyad yet, so I'm not sure. I could change my mind after watching that movie. I think with Greta Gerwig, it's a little bit harder for me. So let's just look at the category. So in this Best Director category, you have Jonathan Glazer, The Zone of Interest. Haven't watched it yet. I'm just trusting that movie is as great as everybody is saying that it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you have Yorgos for Poor Things. Phenomenal. Absolutely deserving to be in this category. Okay.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. Deserving for this category. Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon. Deserving in this category. And then you have Anatomy of a Fall. Also deserving to be in this category. And so I'm left here with do I think Greta Gerwig deserves to be in this category? Yes. But is she more deserving than these other five? I'm not sure. And so I think that's where I'm really grappling with this is I am not sure that I would have voted any differently in this regard, even though I think that Greta Gerwig is deserving. So, as I am prone to do, I would like to offer an alternate solution, if you would allow me.
Yeah, here we go. I'm ready.
Because I'm not good with binaries, and so I'm going to create some different rules. All of these rules are already made up anyway, so why can't we change the rules? So, the number of movies released per year has just grown to a crazy amount. And there's so many quality movies every year that why should we be limited to 5 for best director for a lot of these categories, honestly? So the best picture category, that number has fluctuated over the years. Some years it's 8, some years it's 9, some years it's 10. Why couldn't we have fluctuations in the other categories as well? Like, looking at this list, I'm like, I could name a bunch of other directors that could easily be worthy to be in this best director category. So I would like to propose that for certain Oscar categories, doesn't even have to be all of them, just a select few if we want to start out small, we change the rules to allow up to 7 to be nominated. And then we can have something like a Greta Gerwig could also be nominated in Best Director, and we would have 6 or 7 for this year if it absolutely warrants it, because I think there were so many good movies in 2023. It was a great year for movies. And I feel like the nominees reflect some of that, but maybe don't reflect all of that. So I would like to have more opportunities to celebrate more great films. And so I think we just expand the number a little bit. What are your thoughts?
That was a captivating pitch.
Thank you.
But I am team constraints are good. Constraints are healthy. Constraints makes us make hard decisions like we have this year. And you know what? The people, the masses are going to be up in arms. I actually think that the reaction to the snubs is pretty fascinating, because like clearly it signals that there's something beloved about this movie that it wasn't getting celebrated enough. But I'm actually in the same camp as you, which is like I agree with the choices that were made for best director, which is just a rare thing to say. There's usually like, hey, Academy, you've nailed 4 out of 5 of these, but this one, like, what? I have a better choice for you. But I actually think in this category, the hard part about the 5 spots that you have, and the hard part about these choices, is that you have to do what you did, which is ask ourselves, is this better than, or is this person more, well, by our opinions, more deserving than what's in the list today? And what would you remove to make space for this person? And that is, there's some hard choices that you got to make there. But I actually do agree with the choices that are in this category here. Again, we're going to watch Zone of Interest, but I've heard people just raving about that, and that it's done something totally fresh and new for what a film is, which is like thrilling and exciting. But honestly, like, Barbie was a crowd pleaser. It moved the masses. It was so meaningful for so many people. But there were also a lot of like parts about Barbie that didn't really land that well. And I think because it was so strong in its other categories, and like kind of exceeded expectations for what we would think a Barbie movie might be, and did so much, both emotionally, but also the social commentary and gender roles. But there's some parts of that movie, like with the whole corporate, Will Ferrell and that whole sequence, that like really doesn't work. And so the rest of the movies in this category, and the directors that have brought these visions to life, I think are really are just stronger all around. Not that there aren't great things in Barbie, but they're just, all of these are like absolute gems, and then like every aspect of the filmmaking in these movies are firing at all cylinders. So it's hard to compete. Tough year to compete, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there were so many good movies in 2023. Like, this was a stacked year for sure. Yeah, but it has been really fascinating just reading people's thoughts on this online and on social media, and just seeing how worked up people are getting about Oscar nominations. I'm used to like the film people being upset, and being in those conversations is always super interesting to me, because even in like the film section, some of the snubs that we talked about are very, very different. And then in like the non-film people section, it's all Barbie, all Greta Gerwig, all Margot Robbie. And I think that's a really interesting thing, that this movie was able to capture people's attention, and become this real cultural icon. And I don't know, it almost feels like people are like 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 being harmed by Greta Gerwig not being nominated. Like it almost
Mm,
feels like some people are taking it personally. And
mm,
I find that really, really interesting, just how we can get so invested in a movie or get invested in these symbols. And I don't know, that's just something really interesting to think about. And then like, what are the things that I'm that invested in that I take personally when they happen. So I think I think this choice, a lot of people are seeing it maybe as more malicious than it actually is. And don't get me wrong, I don't trust the
interesting.
Academy as far as I can throw it, but like this crop of best directors makes sense to me.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it just says something interesting about our society based on the reactions to this news.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's so true. And I think it's neat because a lot of times in movie years that we've had, there's just less content that is nominated and part of these nominations, conversations, and part of the show that like are so widespread and pop. Like there's often these folks that are really invested in these movies because they've seen them and they love film, but like the big budget blockbuster films often aren't part of these conversations. And I think that perhaps people are just paying a little bit more attention this year because there are things like Oppenheimer and Barbie that people have really seen and loved and are hoping to see represented here. But like historically, the Academy has never typically gone for and rewarded the like big pop splashy colorful
Mhm.
comedies. So there's kind of no surprise here. And I think Greta is so well respected, and Barbie is celebrated in the box office. And perhaps there's a little bit of like feelings about that as well, of like celebrating art versus celebrating commerce, and that whole debate that often ensues that is maybe part of this as well.
Yeah, and I think something else that's maybe lost in some of this discourse is that Barbie was still nominated in 8 categories, which is not nothing. Like this was still highly celebrated by the Academy. Maybe not in all of the categories that it could have been, but 8 Oscar nominations is not nothing. And for it to go to Barbie is pretty incredible, I think, especially because the Academy is known for celebrating true cinema. And so the fact that Barbie is as well received as it is, I think is also something important. Did it maybe get everything we wanted? No. But like we talked about, this has been an incredible year for movies, and it was up against some of the best that we have gotten in movies. So I think it was always going to be maybe a little bit of a long shot given what it was up against. But
Yeah, no, it's a really good point because I really wonder, like, for the people that are upset, have they seen The Zone of Interest, Poor Things,
yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon, Anatomy of a Fall, and is that part of the context, or is it just, hey, I really love Barbie and I want it to be celebrated in all these ways, but also there's maybe this is like a great signal of like the incredible marketing campaign that Barbie has staged with all
Mhm.
of the
Yeah.
interviews with Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig sharing their heart and their passion for this story. Like that is highly effective as well, clearly because it's garnered so much investment. Yeah, it's fascinating, really fascinating. I think people are just paying attention, and I don't know if they've seen everything else. That's my
Mhm.
spicy take.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my hypothesis as well. I've tried not to wade into any of it, but
We
that
just
that has been
observe
a
from the shore.
question.
Yes.
Honestly, yes. I like to be a lurker on social media, and so I just want to see what everybody's talking about. But I'm not trying to poke holes. If I know you, then we can have a conversation and we can like get into it and stuff. But I'm not trying to have that kind of deep conversation with a stranger on the internet. That's not fun. But I have the same suspicion as you do.
Yeah.
Because we haven't even seen all five. Like
No, I know,
we
exactly.
still have to figure out how to watch the zone of interest.
Yes,
Uh, so yeah, I'm
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
We will see what happens, but I am still
Mhm.
choosing to celebrate the fact that Barbie was nominated in 8 categories, including America Ferrera for Best Supporting Actress. I
Yeah.
think that's great. It's her first nomination. Amazing. Can we celebrate that? Like, obviously, we can be upset, we can feel all the feels, but let's not forget to celebrate the good alongside all of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. I think that's so true. And along that same vein, I think there's like also a narrative around um, the Academy celebrating like male dominated, male created, male written films. And that has often been the case. And actually, I think this is something that we talked about with last year's crop of movies is that if you look at the best picture category, because it is kind of representative of what movies are in the conversation, there are a lot of movies that are featuring like male protagonist stories, and this year we've gotten more things, more female stories, female directed films. Especially, I think last year there was only one. This year we have three. Like that is exciting, that is thrilling. And there are more stories featuring women and the lived experiences of women that are also part of the crop of movies this year that we're talking about, and that's exciting. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. And is it too slow? Yes. Should it be more than 3? Probably. But again, like, I don't want to miss an opportunity to celebrate the good. We can keep pushing for better, but I think we also need to remember to celebrate things like that because there are so many great movies in this list. Great movies directed by women, and these movies are being celebrated. Maybe not as much as we would like, but let's enjoy the fact that they are being recognized for the quality that they are. And female directors will continue to be on the rise. Their works will continue to be funded. Their visions will continue to be funded. And we will continue to get even better stories, even more opportunities in the future. So maybe sucks this year, sucks for Greta Gerwig this year, but she is going to continue making incredible movies. It's probably not enough, but she will get other nominations in the future. And we will
Yep.
celebrate those then too.
Yep. It's hard to compete this year. It's hard to compete, um, especially in Best Director category. While we're on the
Mm-hmm.
topic of Best Director category, I gotta celebrate my guy, our favorite dude, Scorsese, Marty.
Yes.
I learned this little tidbit and it brought joy to my soul. He has now overtaken Steven Spielberg as the most Oscar nominated director with 10 nominations in all.
Wow.
Granted, the man has made like 40 plus movies, so like
Hello.
amazing, amazing body of work. But also, like, this is an exciting year for him, I think, just to see his work that he's so passionate about getting celebrated, I think, in the top three leading movies with the most nominations. It's just amazing to see the Academy show up and celebrate a 3.5 hour incredibly
Yeah.
probing piece of work around who we are and where our country's at and the nature of human beings and our capacity for evil. Like there's just it's a lot. It can be a lot. And I think this is just like such a testament to the respect that the Academy has for him and his career. So here he is. 10
Mm-hmm.
nominations for Best
Wow.
Director. Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. Like,
I know.
wow.
People are lucky
Wow.
if they can like make 10 movies in their lifetime.
Right?
you know?
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's wonderful to see him celebrated like this. And I think especially for this movie that means so much to him and has kind of been on his radar for so long to be celebrated the way that it is in the Oscars and all of the different voting bodies has been uh really really great to see, especially because like you said, it's such difficult subject matter to sit through, and yet people are seeing the beauty and the artistry and the skill that went into making it and celebrating it. Love it.
Yep. Yep. Exciting year for Marty. One other thought while we're in this category for Best Director is I am surprised that instead of Greta, that Justine Triet has made it into this category. I expected Anatomy of a Fall to be celebrated and for the Best Picture category for something like maybe Best Actress for the screenplay category, but I'm impressed that they are recognizing her work as the director of this film. I think that it's maybe like a trend over the past couple of years where at least one of the films in this category is international. But it's just amazing to see that like there is recognition for her vision for this film beyond some of those other categories that we just talked about. So that was a pleasant surprise. I expected it to be maybe celebrated in like a sprinkling out in other places, but not in this one. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and it's also so satisfying that we just watched it and then we got these Oscar
Yeah.
noms. So being able to celebrate her, but like honestly, she got a dog to play dead for minutes, and it looked like that dog actually died. Like I feel like she deserves best director for that alone. Like that is worthy of a nod. Just what she was able to get that dog to do. Excellent.
Talk about it. Talk about like the superpower that directors need to have to like draw
Yeah.
out the best performances from their actors on set. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
Some good
Including
work
those
was done there.
non-human actors. Yeah.
Some good work was done. All right. I think one of the other big news, big snubs that people are talking about is Leo for Best Actor for Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm curious your thoughts here.
Honestly, I'm I'm not mad at that. I It's fine. I am a little bit more shocked that Barry isn't in this for his work in Saltburn because
I mean, Saltburn didn't get any.
it didn't
That
get
was,
any. And that,
yeah,
like, there's a lot of snubs that happened this year. Saltburn not getting a single nomination, I
not a
think, is
single
one
one.
of them because
Yep.
that movie is wild. You don't know what to do with it, but it is fantastic and meticulously constructed, and the performances are phenomenal. Rosamund Pike, hello, Best Supporting Actress. Where is her nomination? Rude. Like there's so many things about set design and cinematography and all of these things, and it gets none. So I think that's what I'm more salty about than Leo. Um, but there is one really great thing in the Best Actor category that I want to celebrate before we continue airing grievances, and that is Coleman Domingo being nominated for his performance in Rustin. I am so happy about that because Rustin, it's an important movie. It's okay, like in the grand scheme of moviedom, but Coleman Domingo's performance is phenomenal. He is electric in that movie. He makes it so fun and exciting to watch, and he embodies all of the complexities of this character. And I'm just so glad that the Academy is celebrating and honoring him and recognizing his performance because it was great. So this is one of those like, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with all of your choices, but you made this really good choice that I want to celebrate and focus on.
I haven't seen Rustin yet, but I'm intrigued by that one. It wasn't on my radar, and I don't think it was. It's a little bit of a surprise, yeah, that this one made it in the category. I think the
Mm-hmm.
other ones in this
Oh, yeah.
category are like, yeah, solid options. We kind of expected, but this one was a little bit of a surprise, which is exciting. But yeah, I think that the discourse around Saltburn is really interesting because it's so volatile that like it's clearly showing here, and all of the nominations
Mm-hmm.
that not a single, like not even like set design or costume design, like not none of them were uh given at least a nod to Saltburn. and probably like people that didn't like this film just kind of wrote it off. And I'm sure that like
Mhm.
um, when it comes to the mathing of it all, that it just couldn't rally enough support for any nominations, which is just, I think, as volatile as the response to that film is, I think it is actually a much more tame film than the volatility seems to suggest to
Yeah.
me. Like if I hadn't watched that movie yet and heard about like the wide mix of reactions to this movie, I would have expected to actually be a lot more uh just igniting and dramatic and difficult in certain parts to tease out, but it's pretty tame. So I feel like the reaction is almost like disproportionate to the actual content itself.
Yeah, that was one of those, like, while I was watching it, I was like, I'm not necessarily enjoying this, but there's so much meaning to it. And you can tell while watching, even if you're uncomfortable and not necessarily having the best time, you can still see the beauty and the intentionality that it was constructed with. You can see the talent in each of these performances. Like there's so much goodness in Saltburn, and it feels I'm I am more upset, I think, about Saltburn not being nominated than the whole Barbie fiasco, because I think that Saltburn is worthy to be in multiple categories, and yet it is absent. Another movie that is also absent, there's quite a few of these, but another movie that is absent is The Iron Claw. Nowhere to be found.
Yep. Yep.
Not a
That was the one
one.
that I had on my list. Yeah, it's interesting. It could be just, like timing. I think it came out pretty late.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
like I think there's some conversations around like, hey, it just couldn't gain enough steam and momentum. But especially in some of I mean, some of these so many of these categories are stacked already, so this is hard. But there's some great performances in both in the best actor or best supporting actor categories that I think could have been worthy, but not a nope, it was shut out, totally shut out. It could be just like an exposure and generating the excitement
Mhm.
problem. And I
Yeah.
wonder if even A24 didn't expect for that film to do as well and be as received so warmly by both film critics and the masses alike. I think that movie's made like more money than was expected as well. So I wonder if it was like maybe a surprise for them that people were seemed to be really resonating with it. But yeah, I would have expected to see it in some of these categories, at least a few nods to it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. And I do wonder if it kind of goes back to some of what we were talking about earlier with Barbie, of like this perception of what movies get Oscars, and how that is changing, and how we can use these these genres as ways to create what we would call cinema, like Barbie is not just like a fluffy movie, but it has a lot to say. Saltburn is this crazy wild ride that's a work of art, but it's very unconventional and doesn't fit into a genre. So what do you do with that? The Iron Claw uses a sport and a sports drama to actually explore family and all of these really complex family dynamics, and I would say that they are all really high quality. But I wonder if it's not like the like type of movie, quote unquote, that would normally get featured at the Oscars. So maybe it's not as widely recognized as it could be, or it didn't garner as many votes in all the categories as it maybe could have.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that like in the categories that it might get nods in, the movies that are nominated in those categories already have quite a few in many of
Mm,
the other categories.
yeah.
So it, they really aren't seeming to take the approach of let's spread the love, and in the categories that we want to celebrate something or at least recognize it or have it be a part of the conversation, let's use this category to celebrate this aspect of this film that we thought they did really well in. We have kind of a pretty scoped number of movies that are all, circling around um, many of these categories. So I think that's pretty fascinating. Like if you look at both the screenplay categories, a lot of them we're going to be talking about in the best picture and best actor and all those big categories that are often like the ones that people get jazzed about. Like there's a lot. It's a lot of the same stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, the Academy does not like my spread the love approach. Like, if it were up to me, I would be like Oprah, like, you get an Oscar, you get an Oscar, you get an Oscar. But, like, obviously within limits, I want to give it to
Yeah.
the best of the best. But I want Saltburn to get an Oscar. I didn't enjoy the Iron Claw, but sure, I want to give them an Oscar too, because it was a good movie, even though I
Hmm.
didn't connect with it. But
Hmm.
I am not the Academy,
Yeah.
so this is where we're at, and it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because they did take that approach the year that Emerald Fennell did Promising Young Woman, which is that she won for the screenplay category. And I don't think she had some major nominations in some of the other categories. So that was their like nod for her. I think maybe Saltburn just was too volatile, too dividing of
Hmm.
the voting
Yep.
body.
Yep.
Any other major snubs that we think are worth mentioning, talking about?
Well, I wanna bring this one up for you uh, because Killers of the Flower Moon is not included in a writing category,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
It's in
that
a lot
to
of the
me is
technical categories, actually.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
I'm just surprised that it's not showing up in these writing categories. I mean, these writing categories are very strong, so I
that's the
get it. It's
problem.
tough
Yes.
competition, but like, wow, I was a little surprised to not see Killers of the Flower Moon in the writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wonder, my theory is that, there's been all this conversations around what Scorsese did with the story and not he's gotten some criticism of not focusing enough on sharing and centering the story around the Osage people, and that it's still centered around the white men of the story, which Marty's had an incredible response to, which is that I am coming to this story from the things that I know and the things that I believe are important for the background and the expertise and the types of stories that I've told in the past. Like, this is what I can bring to the story. And he's highlighted that there is a gap in people being able to tell these stories that have the connection and the understanding of these underrepresented people groups that can be the ones to tell those stories. But I think he's incredibly self-aware to know what he uniquely can bring to a story like this and showcase and shine a light on and kind of challenge the average American to consider about the areas that they have privilege. So I wonder if that's part of this, like people are upset with the way that he adapted the book or the ways that he's chosen to like focus on certain aspects of the book. I don't know. It's also, this category is just so strong that,
Hmm.
there's
Yeah.
there's that too, and it's already nominated in a million other categories that maybe they were like, okay, we'll focus on these other ones. That's my working hypothesis.
I like it, and I will accept it. Sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so some of the other
Mm-hmm.
movies that didn't get a single nomination. Okay, we already talked about Saltburn. We talked about the Iron Claw. Priscilla didn't get any. There's no
Yeah.
Sofia Coppola on here at all, um,
No. Yeah.
which is wild.
Yeah.
Uh, Asteroid City,
Yeah.
not
That
here.
was another one that I had on my list of like, man,
Like,
it's
are you
really
kidding me?
rough. Really
Where is
rough.
my guy? Though
Yes.
there is, because Wes Anderson also did his shorts on Netflix, and one of the shorts
Mm.
was nominated. So at
Yeah.
least
But
Wes is represented. But
mhm,
man, that production design in Asteroid City, like,
insane.
excuse you, you're not going to beat that.
Yep.
Um, Also, Origin, Ava DuVernay's latest film,
Yeah.
critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Where is it? nowhere to be found. Ingenue Ellis, nowhere to be found. So like
Yep.
there's some kind of gaping holes, I feel like, this
Mhm.
year. And again, I think it just goes back to what we've been saying. Like 2023 was such a good year for movies that it's hard to narrow it down. And I think that's what we're seeing. Anything that's maybe a little bit more, I don't know, eccentric or a little bit off the beaten path uh, might fall away, even if it is of incredibly high quality and worthy to be in some of these categories, not all of them. Gets kind of overlooked. So I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
interesting to think about what was omitted entirely.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps your point earlier around the volume of content is a challenge because once there begins to be momentum around this collection of films, so much is centered around them. Like, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier around like so many of these categories are really focused on the same group of movies. You know, like the spread that we are able to get is more limited than previous years. I think previous years we've
Mm-hmm.
had a larger spread. And I think we said the same thing last year of just commenting like, hey, the spread is a little bit more narrow than they have been in the past. And is that a product of the fact that like we just have so many great movies coming out and we don't have time, like the voting body does not have time to explore them all? Is it the marketing and exposure and campaigns for some of these other films that are just a little bit more limited and can't compete with the bigger investments? You know, like, is there some aspect around that? Because, like, I am surprised that Poor Things has gotten this much attention. That's something that was a little bit surprising to me for being the second most nominated film out of all of them.
Yeah.
I think I would have expected there to be little like nods again into some of these like acting categories, the screenplay categories, but it has gotten so many more than I expected, and that's exciting. But like, there's clearly kind of this momentum and center of gravity around this film, which is quirky and out there and weird that we just all seem to be excited by. Um, Versus some of these other ones that maybe the tastes and preferences are more spread out across the voting body. So there isn't enough of like a resounding coalition that can build around them, which is a
Mm-hmm.
great problem that we have a lot of good movies. But
Yeah.
also, do we need to make the time period longer for people to have time to like see and consider and invest in figuring out which ones we want to spread the love for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I I do hope that, I don't know, there's, because there's so much uproar about Barbie, I kind of hope that the Academy will have a sober self assessment and maybe rethink some things. You know, we don't need to expand like I would like. That's fine. We can make little tweaks, but I don't know, just using this as an opportunity to think about the way the Academy does things and see if there is a better way forward. And maybe there's not. That's okay. We still got a good crop of movies here. Like, I'm not, while there are some gaps that I think should be addressed, on the whole, there's so many quality movies here. I can't be like that angry about it. But I'm hoping that they have a little sober self-assessment and see how can we improve. That would be lovely.
Maybe we need to like do what our school teachers do, which is grade on a curve. Like, no movie can get more than
Mm-hmm.
6 nominations, you know, so that you don't
Honestly,
have the
yeah.
runaway favorite. You don't have, and no movie can be nominated but for more than X categories, and no movie can win more than like four or whatever. You know what I mean? Something, some forcing function that encourages us to watch and think and consider films that are outside of this collection of like 7 or 8 that seem to be where we're encircling around. Built in
Mm-hmm.
uh built in ways to encourage the behaviors we are excited to see. You know, something.
Yeah, yeah. That was a rule that I also considered, but I was like, there's no way that anybody would go for that. So, but I
Yeah.
like it.
We do
I
it in
want that.
school, you know, only like, 5
Exactly.
kids in the class can get A's,
Yeah.
and then eight get B's, four get C. Like, we need the same situation here.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's not because, like, I don't know, we don't want to like fill like quotas here, or like check
Right.
a box, but we want the opportunity for more great movies to be seen and more great movies to be celebrated too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's so many quality movies that were left off of this list, and I want to find a way to include them. And of course, we talk about them, but like, we are minuscule compared to the Academy. And so to have that large of a platform spotlighting some of these other films that may have fallen off of people's radar, that are still incredible movies, that seems like a really worthy goal. And so, like, how do we make that happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. I think it's tough because when there are so many candidates, it's like just so much to consider, and I have to say, like, some years, looking at the best picture list, I'm like, about half of these I'm excited about. There's like three on here that are like, yeah, they're fine. And then two that I'm like, I'm upset that you are in the presence of greatness on the rest of this list. And this year, our best picture list is so strong. So strong. Like, we don't have, I'm so glad, like, Air isn't on here, or,
Yeah.
like, something where I just, or like, the previous years, there's like the Ford versus Ferrari one, or there's like Don't Look
Hmm.
Up, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
what?
Ugh.
You can't be listed next to freaking like Tar and the Banshees of
Yeah.
Inisherin, like, and we have such a strong list this year, and there is no real weak link. So that's a win in my book. I'm like, Air's not on here, so I'm very happy about that.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think that's what I keep coming back to, is like, yeah, there are things that I disagree with, and I think that other movies are more worthy, but there aren't there aren't the heirs on here. The Don't
Green
Look Up
books.
equivalent of
Mhm.
2023 is not
Yeah.
on here. And
Yep.
so, like, I don't know, on the whole, I feel like this is one of the stronger lists, even though I think it is limited and maybe doesn't include everyone that it could.
Totally agree. All right. Other major things that we wanted to comment on?
Okay, I have a couple of more snubs, and then
Okay.
a couple of things that I want to celebrate.
Okay.
So, number one, the killer is not on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I was thinking about you with that one.
The sound design in that movie, holy
Hmm.
moly, they messed up for
Yep.
not including the killer in that category.
Yep.
Um, Also, May December is not on here in any acting category. Um, I think
Didn't
particularly
get
Charles.
one. Yeah. One of the.
Yeah, it got one in the writing category, but not
Yeah.
in the acting categories.
Okay.
And I think Charles Melton, in particular, for Best Supporting Actor, uh, is really deserving. His performance in that movie is quite good, um, especially considering that he's acting with Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, and he still stands out. And so it's kind of a bummer that he didn't get a nod. I also think it's a shame that Willem Dafoe didn't get a nod for Best Supporting Actor in Poor Things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, like we talked about, this category is stacked, and so like, I'm not I'm not sure how I would redo this category to accommodate everyone that I want in it. But
I would like to advocate for Ryan Gosling to bow out politely
yes,
for
yep,
Willem Dafoe.
I
Like,
agree.
I mean, he's charming and wonderful in Barbie, but is it an incredible performance? Like, solid, but I don't know. Not there's in this category. There's so many stronger ones that I think are more deserving. So,
Yeah, and then to avoid some of the like Ken Barbie discourse, like, just don't give it to
right?
Ryan Gosling and save
Yeah,
yourself a headache and just give it to Willem Dafoe. Like, we all win in that situation.
Mhm, mhm. The tough thing is, like, Willem Dafoe is just so good at playing that type of character, and he does it so
Hmm.
well every
Yeah.
time that I feel like it's ironic because he's almost the bar is so high for him that to give a standout performance that people will really pay attention to, he's just so solid every time. And he's so good at what he does and brings so much to that role. It's almost like, man, the more you deliver, the more people expect from you.
Hmm.
Harder to wow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then another person that I thought of is Penelope Cruz. She is the only good part of Ferrari, in my opinion. Nowhere to be
Yep.
found.
I would like to replace America Ferrera with Penelope Cruz because once again, like,
Oh.
yeah, I think my theory is that this is the Jamie Lee Curtis award of this year, which is like you've done so much in this industry and this like celebrating your career because this performance is it's fine. She gives a like okay speech. I and I think that that speech is very meaningful to a lot of people. So I want to recognize like how much those words have carried so much power for so many people, so many women. Um, but I don't think this is like a wow performance. And there are some of these other, again, folks that you're sitting next to that are so bring so much to the table in their films. I'm intrigued to see uh, Jodie Foster and Nyad and Annette Bening and Nyad because they both nominated in these two
Hmm.
acting categories for that film.
Yeah.
But it's just it's fine. It's fine. Her performance is fine. That's my
But
opinion, though. I don't know if people agree.
you know whose performance is not fine? Davine Joy Randolph freaking killed it in The Holdovers, and she got her Oscar nomination.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so
Yep.
happy. She's been killing it across all of these different award groups, and I hope that she kills it at the Oscars because she was phenomenal in The Holdovers, and I just want to celebrate the heck out of her because she's great, and I'm glad that she got an Oscar nomination.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is a strong category. I'm intrigued to see. Yeah, I haven't seen The Color Purple yet either, so I'm intrigued to see how what that performance is like. But man,
I
you
also
know,
haven't seen The Color Purple yet, and I'm a little surprised that that is also only in this one category. Like, this acclaimed novel, this beloved story, this musical, like, I don't
it
know.
is
That could
very like
be
Oscar baity. Like it is
right.
typically what the Oscars would go for. Yeah, you're so
So
right.
I'm curious. Haven't seen it yet, so I'm curious after I see it, how upset I'm going to be about it only being in this one category.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I have to say, reading through all of these categories in this list and all of the momentum that Oppenheimer has, I just hope this isn't like a clean sweep by the Oppenheimer behemoth this year
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
there are so many other films that I'm just excited about and passionate about that I want to see recognized. And I fear that this is going to be the Oppenheimer version of the Everything Everywhere All at Once sweep, where just like category after category, like we are calling out the same film. And while it signals obviously just the amount of um, excitement that that film received in that year, and I think of all films like that was so fresh and exciting and amazing for the film industry, but Oppenheimer is just so classically the movie that would receive all of this attention and excitement by this voting body, and I just don't. I want it to be recognized, but I don't want it to be a clean sweep by the Oppenheimer behemoth. I fear that, and I'm putting out all of the good energy for March 10th for us to see a collection of films celebrated in the night.
I share that same fear, and I really need the Academy to just acquaint itself with that Oprah mentality of everybody gets a car and just let's spread the love.
Mm-hmm.
Oppenheimer
Yeah.
can even get the most. Like, they're nominated in 13 categories, whatever. Give them like 5
Yeah.
Oscars. Sure, fine, whatever. Don't give them all 13. Don't give them 10. Like,
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
them a few. It's
Yes.
absolutely deserving. But, like, can we not have it just be the Oppenheimer show? It was a
Yeah.
great movie. Okay, yes, absolutely. Let's celebrate it. But, like, there's a lot of other great movies on this list. Let's not lose sight of that.
Yeah. Totally agreed. Totally agreed. And my biggest fear, which is a
Mm-hmm.
subset of my overarching fear,
Yes.
is that it's going to get both Best Picture and Best
Ugh,
Director. And I'm going to be a
yeah.
very upset human if that
Ugh.
happens. And I could see it happening. That's the problem. I
Mm-hmm.
could see it happening. But I would love for them to at least, I think it's going to get at least one or the other. But I would love for them to
Yes.
split that, you know?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
would
that would
love
be
to see that.
great.
That would be great.
And sometimes they do that too, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, and especially, I don't know, I feel like you have like Nolan and Scorsese going up against each other.
I
Like,
know.
I don't know. But again, I am of the Oprah mentality of I'm going to give one to one and one to the other. So you both get an
Right.
Oscar.
Right.
But the Academy typically doesn't think that way, but
Yeah.
sometimes they do. So
Yeah.
maybe this will be the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to see maybe an Oppenheimer Best Picture because it's going to get one of the two categories, and then a
Yes.
Scorsese win for Best Director, which I think would be
Hmm.
so fitting for this film that feels
Oh,
so
yeah.
significant for his legacy as a director. You know, like I think Nolan's got more in him, and I think he's going to create more things and put more content out there and whatnot. He's got more years, but this Killers of the Flower Moon feels like such a crowning jewel for Scorsese's legacy and such a perfect way to honor that. But we shall
But
see.
the Academy does like to do stuff like that, where they're
Yes.
like, I'm going to give you
Yeah.
something because your body of work is so good, yada,
Yeah.
yada. Though typically that happens on not their best film. And I would argue that Killers of the Flower Moon is like Marty at the full strength of his powers. But
Yes.
still, maybe they will be like, hey, man, you've done so much good work. This is number 10.
Yeah.
Let's give it to you. That's a nice round
Mhm.
number.
Yep.
Let's do
Yep.
it.
We will dream. We will dream all the way up
Sure
until
will.
March 10th at whatever 6 p.m. Pacific
Yep.
time when it begins. Yes.
Hmm.
Some good things. Okay.
Yep.
Any other big comments, things to note?
Can I, yeah, can I just say the thing that I am most surprised about on this whole entire list? El
Okay.
Conde, which no one has seen, was nominated in the
Yeah.
cinematography category. I saw that and I went, wait, what? I thought it was the only person who has watched this movie. And it was nominated. That is an Oscar nominated film. I was so happy.
Is that of all of the categories, is that the one that you feel like is fitting for what
Yes.
this film? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
things.
When I
Yes.
think about that film, I was so wowed by the visuals. Like, beautiful, beautiful film. This luscious black and
Mm,
white. It's gorgeous. So yes, if you're gonna
good.
nominate it, it would be in cinematography. And they did. That is
Mm,
wild.
yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
So
very,
good.
very pleased to see that movie on there that nobody's seen. So now maybe people will go and watch it because it's weird. It's not for everybody, but it is beautiful.
Mm, so good. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by this one.
Hmm.
It'll be fun to watch. And you know what? That's part of what's exciting to us about when movies get recognized like this is that I might end
Hmm.
up watching this one, but now I definitely will be watching this one. You know, like
Yeah.
that's what this ushers in. Yeah. Um, two last little things. One, I would like to air my grievance that the creator was nominated for Best Sound.
Yeah.
I don't remember that movie, let alone
Yeah.
the sound design, but really random, really random.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We'll have to probably like rewatch or watch a couple aspects of that movie because I don't recall anything about that one. And then my second little thing is, while Past Lives didn't personally resonate with me, I am pleased to see Celine's song recognized in Best Original Screenplay, because I think this is the like a very fitting category for what seems to resonate so deeply for so many people about this movie, which is the way that these characters in the story was constructed. And I mean, this has been like a darling for so many people in the film world, but for this story that features like a story about someone understanding their identity as an immigrant to be so resonant for people, and for her to get recognized in this category is quite exciting. I thought that this movie would get a few little nods, but I am pleased to see that it has gotten recognition in a number of categories beyond just maybe one or two. So that's exciting. It's neat to see, and I'm glad people are connecting with the story. I think it also just breaks so many of the bounds of what a romance story is like in Hollywood, and kind of flips that genre on its head in many ways. So I think that's pretty neat. So I love that it's getting recognized.
Yeah, yeah. I love that people are loving this movie, and I think it's another example of like this movie is a little bit different, but people are able to see and celebrate the quality, and that's just wonderful to see that these stories that are a little bit different than we're used to, that kind of break out of the mold, that they are still seen for the cinematic value that they bring, and how they are shaping and influencing cinema, and that they deserve to be in the conversation of the best of the best. And it's nice to see a movie like Past Lives uh, being in that conversation with something that's as good as the other movies in this category. You know, it's awesome to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Any other last thoughts before we wrap up?
Also, Godzilla minus one was nominated. So now
Oh.
there is an Oscar nominated Godzilla movie. This is incredible. I'm so pleased. I want Godzilla to win an Oscar. That would be so fun. Think of
Which
the
category is
memes.
it? Oh, best visual effects.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that's exciting that it's nominated. Interesting I mean, of all the categories, this probably makes sense, but
Yeah.
the effects are okay in that movie. But you're right.
They're
It's getting
so
nominated for
good.
something. Yeah.
So good. And
Yeah.
cost way less than all of these other movies.
See, that's what's impressive.
Yeah.
That's what's impressive.
Yeah, dude.
The like value to investment ratio is very, very good on that one. So by that
Yeah,
standard, yes.
that's quality right there.
Yeah.
It's going to be so fun what people can Photoshop with a Godzilla and an Oscar trophy, statue, whatever it's called. That would be
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
Just think about what we can do on the internet. If Godzilla
Mhm.
wins the Oscar,
Yeah.
it probably won't, but it would be super fun.
Hmm.
A girl can dream.
We can. Uh, all right. Well, as per usual, our tradition on this podcast, we will be doing our annual Oscar wager. So, in the couple of days leading up to the Oscars ceremony on, I think it's March 10th, I believe it's March 10th, we
Mhm.
will be sharing some of our predictions for who we think the Academy will choose in each of the categories. Well, in a subset of the categories, we won't do them all, but we'll do, a decent number of them. I think 14, 15 of them, a good number. And we will also be pretending to be the sole voting member of the Oscar body, and we will be choosing our personal picks for what we would like to see win in each category if we had the powers to choose. So we've got a whole scoring system that we'll tell you about on that episode, and then right after the Oscars, a couple days later, we'll be sharing some of our Oscars reactions based on who actually won in each of the categories. So good things coming very soon in the next couple of weeks. All right. Well, thank you for listening to today's special little bonus episode with our reactions to the Oscar nominations. Our name, Movies and Us, sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. So everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and a review, letting us know your thoughts about the Oscar nominations this year. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at Movies and Us Pod, or you can email us at moviesanduspod@gmail.com. We will be back next week with the film review for American Fiction coming very soon. All right. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you soon.